Hi, hello! How's it going? Welcome to the second ever episode of Design With Me, where I design characters and you use me as background noise. Woo! How fun. Anyway, so, life update. I still have COVID as I'm writing the script. Yeah, I know. Glad we got that out of the way. Let's talk about the topic at hand. If you've been in this hellhole for a long time, you'd know these two freaks. These idiots. They're gay, and they're married. How horrifying. And if you're extremely dedicated to my work, you'd also know this harlot. He's really zesty, and he makes my acid reflux worse. He's also married to the other two freaks. Woke virus. Am I right? I don't know where I'm trying to go with this bit. Meet Ray Miyazaki, Lawrence Winters, and Joseph Sinclair. Today, we'll be revamping them for a new story I've been working on with a friend. So, fun stuff. Very fun stuff indeed. You're going to need a lot of context before I redesign them, so bear with me. Before I nuked my Twitter out of orbit, I briefly introduced a new OC universe that's in the works. This universe, or specifically the story, is named Faewood High, and the setting is very fantasy-based. We have fairies, we have orcs, we have werecats, and worst of all, we have gay men. We got everything in this universe, really. As usual, with most of my projects, Faewood High is very lore-heavy, and there's not really any main characters to the story. It's just an indulgent character creation mess, mixed in with extreme world building, done exclusively in Minecraft and Google Docs.
Huh?
Like, this is not at all professional, and it's not a webcomic, or a game, or anything like that. It's just a thing that lives in my head rent-free that I like to talk about. So, without getting into too much of the specifics, Faewood High, like I said, is a fantasy world with lots of humanoid creatures. The main species you'll see are fairies and orcs, and the world itself is very rich with history. I'll be sharing that history the more I make these videos, but the basic gist is, the universe itself is called Alagata, and in Alagata there are several regions that are ruled by different dragons that represent different elements. These regions are all inspired by real places in the world and all have different representations of several cultures. These cultures are divided by cities, and you'll see overlaps of communities depending on where the city is located. For example, the Fire District is inspired by Latin America or Spain, and it shares a border with the Dark District. The Dark District is inspired by Asia, mostly the east side of the continent, and there's a city between the two districts that's meant to represent the Philippines. Since, you know, we got colonized by Spain, and we got colonized by Japan and America too. A great history lesson, I know. And as I mentioned, these regions are ruled by different dragons. The creatures native to Alagata, such as orcs and fairies, are direct descendants of these dragons, and depending on how physically similar they are to being a dragon, their connection with their elements can be strong or weak. Fairies are the weakest since they don't have their element at birth and they don't have much resemblance to dragons, unlike orcs where their species is naturally divided into elements instead of cultures. Fairies go through this whole process where they're blessed with elements depending on their personality, their dreams, their goals, etc. And if you, no matter what creature you are, want to hone your elemental skills and learn things, you go to a massive school named Faewood High, and Faewood High is located at the very middle of Alagata. It's surrounded by all the regions, and it's mandatory to attend as soon as your age is 14 to 18. That was so convoluted, I am so sorry. We're already at 600 words, but that's basically it. That's the lore, that's the synopsis. Meanwhile, Ray, Lawrence, and Joey were originally in a modern world. They all worked in the cartoon industry as musicians or artists, and since I'm so fixated on them, I decided to transfer them to Faewood High as teachers. So, with all of that being said, let's start off with our first design. Ray Miyazaki is a hybrid fairy. His elements are dark and love, and he hails from the Dark District. He's one of Faewood High's art teachers, and he's very well liked by most students due to his kind and patient behavior, albeit some students might find him a bit irritating because of his eccentric behavior, which is code for he has ADHD and he rambles a lot during lessons. But he's a darling, I swear, he teaches his subject well. I made a video about Ray a long time ago that you can no longer watch, but I will be recreating it someday with his new lore, so stay tuned for that. But firstly, let's discuss the thought process I had with this design. I have been drawing Ray consistently for 2 years now. He dominates my art portfolio. I have probably hundreds of drawings dedicated to him. So designing a new outfit for him in this universe was extremely easy. I often depict Ray in either cutesy or dark attire, sometimes cottagecore, sometimes vintage. It really depends on the scenario and what I think makes him look pretty. He's a really diverse character in terms of fashion, and you'd think I'd struggle with that, but no. It didn't really take long for me to decide what aesthetic to use for him, since I had a vision weeks before drawing his new design, and I was dead set on it. Like, I had pure tunnel vision. I didn't even need an initial concept sketch to visualize what Ray would look like. I just got my references, posed my 3D model, and started working my ass off for hours on his design. I wanted him to have a very specific vibe. I wanted him to look dark, elegant, artsy, and approachable. Someone who looks very soft-spoken, formal, but silly. You know what I mean? And you might be wondering, how do I achieve that? By making him a poofy gothic princess with lots of ruffles on his dress. No duh. Does anyone else think Juliet sleeves are underrated? Those poofy things give off such a dainty vibe, and it was one of the details I needed to include in Ray's design. Alongside a bib collar, or dicky collar. Both terms sound god-awful to me, but these were really popular in the Victorian era, and that's where most of my inspiration for Ray comes from. I've always had this fascination with Victorian fashion, and naturally, I just projected that onto Ray. Like, not only does it fit him well, it makes me happy seeing my interests be represented in my favorite baby girl. Like, Ray's so baby girl, he's my pride and joy. I love him so much. Anyway, what were we talking about again? Oh, right. I gave Ray the striped mermaid dress with an underlayer of ruffles that you can see at the ends of the skirt, as well as the little slit at the side of it. I think I've seen this skirt design before, like years ago maybe. I don't know where I saw it though. But ever since then, it lives in my head rent-free since I think it looks really pretty. That being said, I did see a drawing on Pinterest with a similar dress design, and I actually took inspiration from it by adding the little golden chains around Ray's dress. Funnily enough, the design I took inspiration from looks pretty similar to Ray, but I swear that's just a complete coincidence. The artist is Painting Roses on Instagram, by the way. They have very lovely art. Go check them out if you're interested. Other than that, I don't really have much to say about Ray's design anymore, except for the little bits and bobs scattered about. Like the Lily of the Valley stitching on his corset thing. Whatever you want to call it. I chose those flowers because of the meaning behind them, of which there are many. For some, it may symbolize purity. For some, it represents happiness, love, joy, and all of that sweet, sappy bullshit. It also represents motherhood, and I thought those definitions fit Ray a lot since he's mother. He's fathering so hard he mothers, you get me? 'Cause I don't. I'm just yapping. And I'm not even registering the words I'm saying anymore. Oops. The flowers on his sleeves were completely random, if I'm being honest. They were meant to be roses, but I caved in and just used a cherry blossom brush IbisPaint has, since I don't like drawing flowers. I suck at them. They're really hard to draw for me, and I told myself I'm not gonna stress over small details anymore. I will stress about other things though, don't get me wrong. You'll notice there's 2 rings on his right hand. The one on his middle finger is a gift from Joey, or Joseph, and the one beside it is his marriage ring that he never takes off, just like his husbands. They never take their rings off, even if they're wearing gloves. God, I hate them so much. Anyway, the big bow at the back of his head is a gift from his stepdaughter, Poppy. We'll talk about Poppy in the next video, hopefully. But yeah, that's really all I got for Ray. I really enjoyed drawing his design, and I'm happy that I made the decision to transfer him to Algata, because I'm a sucker for fantasy. I love having fairy OCs, they're so whimsy. Ray looks really whimsy, color palette is lovely, his dress is a timeless classic, and overall, I love him. Also, fun facts that you might already know if you watch my old videos. Ray's a baker. He can't cook to save his life, though. He likes sewing. His art medium is mainly painting. He can play the piano and the cello, and he writes as a little side hobby to all his other side hobbies. Personality-wise, like I said at the beginning, he's really sweet and patient, super understanding and open-minded. He likes to flirt just to mess with people, and he can be very passive-aggressive when he's mad. If I could, I'd deep dive into his lore, but I have a specific format for this series, so I can't. I'm sorry. So let's move on to the next design. Joseph Sinclair is a hybrid fairy just like Ray. His elements are dark and light, and he technically hails from the Fire District, but was raised in the Light District. Very confusing sentence, I know. Let's move on. Joseph, or Joey, is Faewood High's one and only drama teacher, and he takes his job very seriously to the point where it's pretty concerning. That being said though, he's pretty approachable. He's actually really popular with the students due to how friendly he is. It's just, he can be strict when it comes to theater, and he has mood swings, which often irk those around him. Basically, what I'm saying here is, if he likes you, that's great. If he hates you, you're fucked. Joey is actually a fairly new addition to this whole polycule thing. He's the reason why all 3 characters in this video are in a relationship, actually. He was meant to be a sleazy villain type torturing Ray and Lawrence's marriage, but then I finally drew his initial design and I was like, this guy's dad-shaped? I can't make him a villain. Let's make him one of the founding fathers of fathers instead. So now here we are. He's become a foster dad, and he's got 2 husbands and 1 queer platonic boyfriend who I'll be introducing some other time. I don't regret anything, by the way. As you might notice, this idiot has a similar aesthetic to Ray. He looks like a very typical dark fairy, but crank up the formality and drama to 100. Why? Because I wanted to make him as obnoxiously queer as possible. I had a very clear idea of what I wanted Joey to look like. I wanted him to look as if he just got out of a Phantom of the Opera production and then made it his whole personality. Which, honestly, is basically just him in a nutshell. I didn't have many references for Joey, to be honest. I knew from the get-go I wanted him to wear a corset and a similar blouse to Ray because, once again, he's a gay theater man. Shocking. I know. Also, I wanted him to have this really fancy-looking tuxedo that was partly a train dress. Again, this is one of those fashion things I've seen before that just stuck to me. And now I stuck it to Joey in retaliation. Can you tell I'm writing this segment while dealing with severe brain fog? I don't even know if I'm making sense, but we're just gonna roll with it. Despite knowing how I wanted Joey to look, I actually struggled a lot with drawing him. I couldn't translate the visual in my head to my canvas, and it was really frustrating. I had to restart the sketch several times, and at some point, I was ready to give up. Like, shit was stressing me out. I'm not gonna lie about that. The only way I managed to overcome this was to do a quick, low-quality sketch of his overall design. I don't know if I still have that sketch, but if I do, it should be showing on the screen right now. With this, I finally got the actual sketch finished, and then once again, I found myself struggling more when I finally laid down the flat colors. But this time, I was struggling with this color palette, and it was so annoying. My YouTube layout is going to contradict what I'm about to say right now, but I'm not used to working with cooler color palettes. I tend to stick to warmer tones and vibrant or pastel hues with the occasional muted colors. So, of course, Joey really messed with my head since his colors are more on the cooler, muted side. I think you can see me struggling with this in the Speedpaint, actually. I remember having to do color variations on a different canvas, and again, I was ready to give up until I found this amazing drawing of Eric on Reddit by Jamie Doodles. I hope I pronounced their name right, but their take on the fandom is so good, and I really love the colors they used for him. So I took a ton of inspiration from it for Joey. Once again, I really suggest checking this artist out. They're great, and without their art, I would not have finished Joey's design at all. After that, it was just smooth sailing from there until I got to the boots. I am not fond of drawing shoes. I think they're really difficult to draw, and I hope I improve on them later down the line, but right now, shit's bad. I straight up neglected Joey's boots for 3 days because I didn't know what to do. It was horrible. I felt so stupid since his shoes aren't even that detailed. I drew his boots and accessories on an entirely new canvas, by the way. I do this a lot so IbisPaint doesn't lag out, and if I remember correctly, I did this with Ray and Lawrence as well. Other than that, I have nothing else to share aside from fun facts and tidbits. Again, keep the wedding ring on his right hand. He never takes it off. His rosary is a gift from his mother, Fatima, and the little rose brooch on his tuxedo was something I planned from the very beginning because I heavily associate Joey with roses. It's a very stereotypical symbol of romance, and since he's a hopeless romantic, I just naturally associate him with that flower. Also, the star and moon chain below the rose brooch is meant to symbolize him and his husbands. The moon represents Ray, the star represents Joey himself, and in the next design, you'll see Lawrence has a sun brooch, which is meant to represent himself. We love space gays in this household. Right, fellas? Personality-wise, I can summarize Joey as a himbo who has severe mood regulation issues. He's really sweet, very arrogant, but cowardly. He's also patient and has a soft spot for kids, but he's got BPD, and man oh man, he can get really self-destructive, but we'll talk about that some other day. Overall, Joey's a great dad, he's a great chef, he can play the piano, and he can sing opera. No shit. And despite how much I struggled with drawing him, I really love his design. He looks classy, he looks gay, I love him, he's silly. I want to hate crime him. Anyway, let's move on to the last design for today's video. Lawrence Winters, just like his husbands, is another hybrid fairy, and his elements are light and ice. He hails from the Light District, and he's one of Faewood High's music teachers. Unlike his husbands, however, Lawrence has a pretty strained relationship with most students due to how uptight he is. He's well respected though, since he's a good teacher. In fact, he's probably one of the best teachers in Faewood High. It's just, he's kinda scary, and he's not exactly fun like Ray, or dramatic like Joey. He's just there to teach his class, and he doesn't like messing around. Also, he hates when people are late to his lessons. It pisses him off. Immediately, I just want to say, I struggled a lot with Lawrence's design. I always struggle with drawing him, and I'm not sure why. He's just difficult to draw for me, but that won't stop me from trying anyway. Lawrence has been an OC of mine for 3 years now. He's been around for almost as long as Ray, but since I rarely draw him, and he usually wears the same clothes for comfort, this design wasn't as easy to come up with. Luckily, I already had a vague idea of what I wanted before I drew the initial sketch. But that didn't help much, if not at all. It took me a whole week to finish this design. Yeah, it's that bad. And it's purely because I was procrastinating and overthinking. I wanted to achieve a regal, strict look for Lawrence. I wanted his appearance to command respect. However, I also wanted to tone down the formality so his outfit actually looks like something he'd wear. As I mentioned, Lawrence tends to wear the same clothes for comfort. He usually wears a button-up that's slightly undone with the sleeves rolled up. He also wears simple trousers, usually wears work shoes or boots too, and of course, I tried to incorporate those things into this new design, and it was pretty difficult. I had to keep these clothes in mind while also making them more fancy than they seem. That's basically what I'm trying to say here in simple terms. And how did I accomplish that, you might be wondering? By adding random fantasy bullshit, that's how. I gave him a jabbit with a bow tie and added a sheer shirt under his button-up to conceal his boobs. To hide his bare bits, if you will. Seriously though, I just added that undershirt for no reason. I just thought it was pretty neat. I think it looks nice. Also, I gave him this really cool corset that was inspired by many of the corsets I saw on Pinterest. Luckily, I found out who made these, and the creator is Candy Makeup Artist on Instagram. They make incredible designs that I can never imagine doing myself. Their work is ethereal. It's mind-boggling. Please check them out. Anyway, back to design talk. A few months ago, I saw this really sophisticated-looking outfit on Pinterest. It's for a ball-jointed doll by a Japanese brand called Dolk. I hope I pronounced that right. It's spelled as D-O-L-K. They got some really pretty dolls I could never afford, so that's great. I saved this outfit for future reference purposes because I like how elegant it looked. The overall royal, almost archangel vibe kinda reminded me of Lawrence, and I thought, why not use some of it for his redesign? Specifically, I took inspiration from the coat the doll has. I love characters that have massive outerwear that they never wear properly. I think it looks so cool and so silly at the same time. Like, why are you wearing your jacket like a cape? Are you soft-brained? I don't get it. So, yeah, I gave Lawrence that look. I think it's really cool. It looks like he commands respect with the coat on. Or maybe that's just a result of his resting bitch face. I have no clue. By the way, I love the ruffles and fur I added to the coat. I think it really adds to his overall design, and it's neat. It's pretty. I want to bomb him. I feel like I went way more in depth about Lawrence's design than the other two. Can you tell he's my #1 favorite housewife? That being said though, I don't have anything else to share. I also struggled with rendering him, but that's on me. I was losing motivation, and I was going through executive dysfunction, as always. The color palette was a pain in the ass to figure out. It pissed me off, but honestly, I love Lawrence's new look. I'm really proud of this revamp. It might be my favorite design out of the three, but also, I love all the designs. I'm biased towards these characters, and I can't pit them against each other. I just can't. I already mentioned this in Joey's segment, but the little sun brooch Lawrence has on his coat is meant to represent him. It's meant to match with his husband's, and he also never takes his ring off. Again, I repeat, I want to bomb him. The corset is meant to be a gift from Joey. Realistically, Lawrence would never wear a corset this fancy unless he was goaded into it by one of his husbands, which is code for Joey and Ray says he looks handsome in it, so he's never taking that shit off. He is so infuriating. I want to throw him around like a rag doll, but he's a foot taller than I am, so that's never happening. Anyway, personality-wise, Lawrence is like an old, grumpy man. He's strict, sarcastic, and intelligent. He's also blunt to a fault and sucks at socializing unless it's with his loved ones. In that case, he's pretty soft and pleasant to be around. Also very playful too. He's silly. Lawrence can cook, he can clean, he can play a ton of instruments, and he likes to read during his free time. He's also a great dad, he spoils his kids a lot, he's obsessed with cats, and I'm obsessed with him. I hope this was a fun watch. Let me know who your favorite character is down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these idiots. I had a lot of fun designing them, regardless of my struggles, and I'm super proud of the final results. Next video is hopefully going to be a design video on their kids, so get ready for that. I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you whenever I re-emerge from my coffin. For now, goodbye. Please wish me luck. I'm trying to buy a new immune system on Amazon. I haven't found any good ones yet, and it sucks.